and you're on the road with Chris and Norm, and we are arriving at the Pima Air Museum in Tucson, Arizona. Here it is. How about that? All of these airplanes are museum pieces. It's the largest collection of different types of military aircraft.
Tank.
And a tank. And that weird looking thing. I think that's something to do with clearing mines. And we are at the Pima Air and Space Museum. Oh boy. I gotta see what this thing is. This has got to be some kind of minesweeper, because that's got that shape underneath it. That's can handle a good explosion or two. Never seen anything like it. Sure looks like it could drive over a mine. Wow. It looks awfully strong. U.S. Marine Corps. Nice parking for the big Chevy. We're outside the Pima Air and Space Museum, and there is a rocket booster sitting on the ground, and it's from the space shuttle. Look at that. It's a replica, right? Flyer. Brand new, never flown. Looks like this roof leaks a bit. Drops right about there. But here it is, a replica of the first aircraft, powered aircraft, flown in America. This is a neat look at an engine. Wow. Here's the front half. This is just a screen that's supposed to be there. Compression fans. Combustion chambers. Exhaust gas has to go out hard. And the exhaust gas spins these guys right here. And that runs the shaft that spins the compressor blades. And that's how basically how a jet engine works. This one looks really old though. All these weird looking things back here. What is this one? Cool looking blue little plane back there. Oh, this is the first one. This is the very first jet engine, that's why. Well, they say this is the world's smallest airplane. The Bumblebee. It's a pretty small cockpit, I gotta say. One of your head would stick up there. The rest of you would be in it. Big fat wings. Whole bunch of them. And this F-4 Phantom, U.S. Air Force, still has a tail hook. Still has the hinged wingtips like the Navy plane. This is the hinge. This whole little section tips up. Two different pieces. And the front of the wing, by the way, is really solid. Now, I don't know why that airplane's quite up there, but it is. Also up in the ceiling is a beautiful F-86. Here's the old Huey. I'll have to show you that plane before I walk away. Oh, it's the nose of it. Well, this one's in a lot better condition than the last one of these I've seen. Down by Death Valley. Should also mention that Pima is a dog-friendly museum and a great place to take your doggy for a walk. Hello, doggy. Hello. Hi.
That's what she's waiting for.
Oh, you want this? You think it's food. It's not food. It's my little camera. My little camera. Hi. That is an F-14 Tomcat. Alright, here's that little plane in the sky. Back to the F-14 Tomcat. I kind of like this. This could be useful at home. Who doesn't want one of these? Except right hitch. Could use that. F-14. Is this the super special missile that these things had? No, this isn't the special one. It's pretty special, but it's not the Phoenix missile system that this aircraft is famous for. The Phoenix missile system worked 100 miles out, first one of its kind, I think. I'm not really sure. It worked 100 miles out. This plane could track 24 aircraft, and it could launch on 6 of them, shoot down 6 of them. We're at the back end of a Cobra. These were in service for quite some time. Oh, they got the plexiglass. That's well done. Thank you for doing that. Now, if only they had a little platform right here you could get up. Oh, I'm going to stand on the skid. Standing on the skid. And here's a look inside. Look quite cozy in there. Big bulletproof shield around them. You sat in a bucket of armor in these things. Well, that doesn't look too comfy. Sure hope there's some padding that goes with that. Oh, here's a really great look at how the Navy does a folding wing, because that's got to be pretty strong when it locks up. You can see the hinge and how it has to mate. And then that is pretty neat. Something's missing here. So this side has its pin, but this side doesn't. Something's missing from this side. You know, there's something missing from this whole area. They needed it on another plane before they gave this one to the museum. It's probably something that's pretty hard to replace. They needed it on another plane that was in service. It's missing all the bits that actuate it, or half of them. Yeah, both of those things aren't attached to anything. Something's missing. And also, there has to be a vertical pin there, and that's missing. So there's held together. You got one hinge line, and you got a vertical pin and 2 lower pins. That holds the whole wing together on this aircraft in the dog-friendly museum. Pretty neat. This is a B-18 that really didn't make too many of these things because it got replaced by the B-17, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but the 17 had 4 engines and this only has 2. So they just made a really biggest thing they can out of this one of these. But boy, you see those big bomb bay doors. Blackbird number 51. And this is a little drone sitting underneath here. Associated with this program, but not really. Yeah, this little thing didn't really work out all that well. A little drone. They only launched 4 of these things for real, for real missions, and don't think it worked out all that well. So this SR-71, I believe, is the 3rd built, and it was retired very early. It doesn't have a hell of a lot of hours on it, and I believe that was because they were making advancements as they flew them, and they were actually making these things better as they were building them. And of the first 4, sadly 3 of them were lost. This is the only one that remains, and here she is. She's sitting about 4 feet off the ground at the Pima Air Museum and Space Museum. Look right in her. You can walk right underneath her. You can come right up to the landing. You can touch the tires. And one of the things they had a lot of trouble with this aircraft, they lost more than one aircraft, was because of the tires. The tires were, in the end, they were only certified to land 15 times, and the tires had to be replaced. It was a heat thing about what the tires endured as the aircraft flew. This shot really shows how nicely rippled the fuselage is. I'm not so sure what these white stripes are doing here. Must have been, well, like I said, this aircraft was mostly used for flight tests. I'm not so sure this airframe ever flew a combat mission. Interesting note about the nose is the whole thing's held on by 4 bolts, and it basically just, 4 big bolts hold it on, and air pressure just keeps it there. They've never had an issue with the nose. The nose often came off at the end of a mission, and they have one sitting here with plexiglass on the top of it, and this is where some of the surveillance equipment would be inside, and this entire chamber was for surveillance equipment. This entire piece. Oh, I'll get back a bit so you can see how big it is. There's the nose of the SR, and here's the nose piece on the ground. Same piece. They had a whole bunch of these. Every aircraft had a whole bunch of these. They would put different surveillance packages inside it that were per the mission. The other place they had a lot of surveillance equipment in this aircraft were right down the chines, right down the outsides of the fuselage. There's bays. There are bays right down. The first like 1.5 to 2 feet of it is all about heat and radar absorption, and then the next area has equipment bays, 2 big ones, and a bunch of other stuff on the bottom, and that's where all your surveillance stuff is sitting. Oh, look at this. I was totally wrong. This Blackbird is the 2nd SR-71 built. So that would make it about the 33rd Blackbird built. And it has very, very low hours. It was transferred to the US Air Force program that was trying to figure out how to make one of these things into a fighter jet, which they called the YF-12. Didn't go anywhere though. They kept it for reconnaissance. This is a pretty good little demonstration here. The flight instrumentation was 1950s, 1960s, so pretty basic. And the pilot sat in an early version of an astronaut suit built by David Clark. Oh, and here's one of the things that they would put in the equipment bays. That's a camera. It's one of her payloads. Oh, and here's the 4 different kinds of Blackbirds. Nice, I gotta get this out of reflection somehow so you guys can see it. But there's your 4 different types of Blackbirds. Some of these ones are still classified what they did. This is the one they tried to make into a fighter. Never went in, they never did it. They never went. They built it. They tested it forever. Didn't work out. Super successful. Also successful. One of the 2 of these is what Chuck Yeager flew to get his Mach 3 badge. In the U.S. Air Force, if you attain Mach 3, you get an extra badge. Oh, and this one right here, this has got to be one of the, where's the one? This one doesn't show the drone version. This looks like the drone carrying pod right here. And that's the Mach 3 badge. That's pretty cool. And here's one of the tires. They were a big problem in developing this aircraft. And each one had to carry a parachute this big, just that's my hand, so a whole bunch of parachute, just to deploy on landing to try and stop. Pretty cool. Got her up in the air here. I guess this is what the tires look like when they're about to go. That does not look good at all. Wow, where the hell did they get these tires? I guess they kept all the good ones. I got one of the J58 engines sitting here, but this is pretty cool. This is a start cart, and when they first made these things, this is what it takes to start one engine. This guy here, there's 2 engines inside this thing. Throttle. Ooh, still works. Wonder if this thing will fire up. There's 2 engines inside here. The first ones built were using Buick engines, and in the end they switched them to 454 Chevys. And 2 engines, and it hooks up to the bottom of one of these engines somewhere. I've seen the guys do it. There's videos of mechanics doing it. And then when they're good to go, they rev that thing up, and that motor starts to spin, and then it gets a shot of certain type of fluid that explodes when it meets air, and that's what begins spinning the engine. That's how, or that's what ignites. It gets a shot of an explosive fluid that lights the engine, and she starts to run. So it takes 2 of these carts to start one of these things. They can do it with one, but they usually have 1 cart hooked up to each side. And these things work in any temperature. This thing will work at 115 degrees outside Edwards Air Force Base. It'll work. Beautiful shot under the wing. Beautiful. All those lines are there so that for heat expansion properties. And believe it or not, to change out the engine, you take this outer section of wing almost off. It's on a hinge, and you undo all of these screws in all of these panels all the way down here. Then you undo all of these screws and all of these screws, and then this whole chunk of wing flips up, and then the engine's exposed. And you can see that at the Evergreen Museum with theirs. They've got it in the engine removal position. Very, very interesting way to look at a Blackbird. Well, its last paint job has the signature of the two guys that did it. Huh, way to go, guys. Wow, that is really big. I just gotta say, that is huge. That is about 6 feet across. And this thing spat fire the length of it. What a bird. Oh, a fire truck here, and Chris is in it. What the heck? What's going on? Figure out how to start it? Cool. You're on the road with Chris and Norm, and we're in the Pima Air and Space Museum underneath the back of a Blackbird. It's actually the second one built. Can you get that to work? It's actually the second Blackbird built. And we're underneath it. It's right here. And here's one of the engines. They're pretty big. One of the secrets of this engine, it's very early design. The first version of this was designed in the late 1950s, J57, which actually flew on the prototype. And this is a J58. And the secret are these bypass. These have high pressure bypass. And for some reason, that got air into the afterburner stage under pressure that had enough oxygen in it to ignite and cause all kinds of thrust out this end. Oh, this is silly. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Let's try this one. I'm doing the takeoff right now.
This one's like 2 minutes long.
We'll just let that play. Apparently they changed the serial numbers on their aircraft all the time, so nobody could figure out how many they had, because the public could watch these things take off and land in Japan and in England and outside Bill Air Force Base, but it really had quite the fan base in England. And they operated in England for close to 30 years. Oh, that's cool. There's a picture of one back there being refueled, and another one here. The SR-71s were refueled shortly after takeoff, and it wasn't because they were leaking fuel. That's a myth. The real reason was because it could only take off. The tires would last a lot longer if it took off at half fuel, and when it didn't take off at its operational weight, it needed a tanker to get it up to its operational weight to fill it up. When it took off, it did not have full fuel. Here's a nice tanker shot. The SR-71 never took off with full fuel. It was too heavy on the tires. It always took off with about half fuel, went straight to a tanker at 35,000 feet and got a full load of fuel and then took off. and she certainly needed fuel every 2 hours. Some flights had 5 refuelings. Most flights had 3 refuelings, some flights had 5. Big seaplane. Big seaplane. Door for docking. Get out your door. Wow, that's really something. You see how it had to be able to land in waves, right? So fuselage just has to have a total V to it. That looks like a Mercury capsule, which was the first of the 3 manned rocket programs. Is it? Yep, Mercury. And just one guy went in these ones. Well, that's the remote controlled helicopter. They made a fully remote controlled helicopter. Wow, this thing could be stored in it. You could put like 4 of those in a 5-ton truck. Yeah. They got an engine at each end. This thing probably scoots along pretty good. Wow, there's the front of the space shuttle. Isn't that what that is? Alright, so over here is a mock-up of an X-15. They only built 3 of them for real. I don't know how many mock-ups they made. But this particular one, the 3 were all a little bit different from each other. They were hand-built. This particular one has the extra fuel tanks on board, which is a replica, I believe, of the one that made the fastest human-controlled flight, the fastest manned aircraft. Was this aircraft with these tanks on it, but I'm not sure if it was this exact one. It wasn't this exact one. This is a mock-up, but this mock-up has a serial number on it. I'm going to research which one it was. But this was an incredible aircraft. Chris, here she is underneath Boeing Mothership 008, parked outside Edwards Air Force Base. I believe that's the colors in the pictures I see. This is this aircraft is at Dayton, Ohio, in the U.S. Air Force Museum, and I think that's it. This is after landing. It's done its mission. If it's out here like that, they've actually lifted it up. The back was on a set of skids, and they've actually lifted it up and put its little cargo wheels underneath it to cart it around. But it's already done its flight. It's sitting there. It's a rocket plane. It is a rocket plane. Is this the motor? Let's go look. This is the company that made, one of the companies that made a lot of American rocket engines. Okay, so there was 2 Boeing motherships. There was serial number 003, which was the 5th one built, and there was 008, which was the 10th one built. I believe the first 2 were built just for testing only. I don't think they ever flew. I think they were like, they crushed the wings. They crushed some things. And they're saying that this one is here. That I've got to see. I thought it actually went into other service after it was a mother ship. Only one of them did its whole time. Wow, this is incredible. Then this engine was throttleable. You could throttle this engine. I'm just trying to figure out a few things about how it ran. So this chamber looks like it's got exhaust coming through it. So this is probably some bleed to run the fuel pump. Some exhaust pressure bleed that would run the fuel pump maybe. You can tell there's something nasty happening inside here if there's screws that close together. I'll have to research this engine. See how it runs. They got it so this wing, this is a very, they have the wing shape here is a bit of a curve on it and completely flat across the back. I know that. This is our second time here this year, so I wasn't going to spend a ton of time on the flight line, but it's impossible not to go for a walk. I covered this really well earlier this year. Covered all these planes, and I thought I did a pretty good job. It's in a separate video. I'm actually looking for a B-52 right now, serial number 003, and this one's 067, one of the early ones. Number 3 is supposed to be here somewhere, and it was first used as a mothership in the X-15 program and a few other research aircraft programs, but then it was given back to the Air Force and it was reconfigured to be a regular Air Force one. And the ones that went to be motherships, they did not have the fuel tank on them, and they had a giant drop hanger just inside. This plane's been bent. That whole thing's been bent. That front fuselage, all those ripples in that thing. Something horrible has happened to this airplane, which might be why it's sitting there. Got that many ripples in it, front and rear. It could have been retired due to a hard landing. That happens sometimes. So which one is this? Got beautiful nose art. No, this is serial number 183. Eight jet engines. This thing is big. In service for 60 years. And that is a hard point. All kinds of different things could mount there, but this one looks pretty serious. This thing was massive. And the bomb bay doors are closed. The landing gear doors are massive. I mean, like really big. And an unrestored interior. It's gorgeous. I love it. I think there's some pieces missing over there. I see a lot of empty. They've been salvaged some pieces of these aircraft after they give them to museums. Stuff, keep the other ones in service. Like you always see really lousy tires on them. Those two don't look too bad. That looks bad. Not too bad. It's cupped. 4 big tires at the front and 4 big tires at the back. And each one of these tires is about 4 feet high. Let's have a look at the brakes. There they are. These must work really good or they wouldn't be here. I can't imagine how strong that axle is. And this is there's a shaft. This goes up and down, and right now it's all the way up, and that's probably because it's got no pressure in it, hasn't been maintained. I believe that if this aircraft was maintained, I think it would sit a little bit higher. And when it lands, those hang down and take up a bit of the shock of landing. She sure has a lot of wings and things back here, which means that these are like electronic measures and everything. Like this one, you can see that this looks like an isolator, and this is the blade of the antenna. See that? So this looks like an isolator, and that's a electronic measuring device of some kind. One is back here. This almost looks like some kind of a compartments open up. This does open up. This opens up completely. Wonder what's back here. Much more stuff. Again, these sure look like antennas, sensors. They sure look like antennas. This is very firm, but you know, it's very specific. What are all these things? This looks like a door. Wow, she's big. Huge. Does it have a gunner's position? It does. It actually has the gunner's position. But in this model, we see a different one inside. This model, there is no one there. It's all completely remote. And the earlier versions actually had a gunner back there. There's one of those inside the museum. That's what that other one is. 067. Is that one over there? It has the gunner's position. And this one doesn't. I'll go over there and show you. The wing's so long, it's called a pogo landing gear. That didn't actually touch the ground. It just safetied it. It kissed the ground once in a while when the wind was bad or it had a weird landing. That netting is there to keep the birds out. It's part of the landing gear system. And this is a fuel tank. So, airframe 67 over there has a manned tail gun position, right? And this one is number 183, and it's different. It does not have a manned position. They had gone fully automatic and electronic with the rear gun position by this one. Different design. We got new technology going on back here. They made these. They flew these airplanes for 60 years. They built them for, I don't know how long they built them, probably a couple decades. This was the United States Air Force heavy lift bomber. And you know, they're still flying these things today. Started flying them 60 years ago. Can't replace something that works really good. This is like a 500-pound bomb. General purpose 750-pound bomb. And it could carry 66 of these things. That's kind of bad news for whoever they're pissed off at, eh? Out here at the pogo wheel, and tire needs to be replaced. It's got a little gust lock on it. This thing here is a homemade gust lock, so that if this thing does tip over, they don't want compression in here because they have no pressure in it right now. It's not maintained. So if this little here, it's just here for some kind of safety. All right, we're looking around for another B-52, serial number 003. And look around. They got another F4 outside. See those unique horizontal stabilizer with the leading edge slats? I love that. The business end. Oh, they're missing the piece of the tail hook. This one's missing a tail hook that lives right here. Latches, this is the latch. Kind of the business end over here. Yeah, speed brakes deployed. I like it. Pretty cool. This is the third F4 that we have found at this museum, and it's got this big Soviet star on the air intake there that we don't know what it's there for, but we're gonna find out. Chris is off to investigate. Behind it, a beautiful F-15 Eagle McDonnell Douglas.
One kill.
Oh, this thing killed a plane. And instead of putting a little tiny star under the canopy, he's gonna put a great big one there. How's the internet here, buddy? All good. All good. Cool planes. 6.
Where are you from?
And at MiG-23. And this one in service from 1982 to 1998. Let's get to the sun side here. Blackhawk. Super famous airplane that we can't get to. It's the third B-52 that they have at the Pima Air and Space Museum. It's Balls 3, the serial number is 003. It is actually the 5th one off the production line. And this is the second aircraft that carried the X-15 program. And it's currently being restored. And I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that some of this aircraft flew in the flight test program for a number of years, and then it was given back to the Air Force and it was modified for back to regular service. And I see that some of those modifications have been taken off. The extra fuel tanks have been taken off. When it did flight test, it did not have the extra fuel tanks. So it's being restored to flight test condition. And I can see the wing pod has been put back on it as well. Interesting that they're doing such a major modification to this aircraft. This aircraft will be joining this museum. It'll come out. It wouldn't surprise me if they pull this thing out, put it somewhere beautiful indoors, and put something under the wing, like an X-15. They do have an X-15 mock-up. They don't seem to be doing too much with right now. It's in the Air and Space building. And there's a whole bunch of other aircraft back there, parts of aircraft and things. And my son waiting for me to continue. That's pretty cool. An airline pilot flight simulator for kids. Made by Sega.
The live data, right? Where is this right now?
How did they get... Oh, this is a different program. AirNav radar box.
Where is this? Where am I right now? Oh, Scottsdale.
You're down here. Down here, down here. You're right there. You're right here. Blocked is military, eh?
Yeah.
Well, that's their base, but what's that guy right there? We're in the gift shop, and you know, for sure we need more coffee mugs and glasses at home. For sure we do. Here, I'll take these, buddy. Put these in. Yeah. 3 hours and 33 minutes to Yuma. Destination. Clear for takeoff. It's 83 degrees out. Gotta like it.